What's going on, broskies? YCS Vegas just came to a wrap with a lot of mixed controversies and some obvious wins with the decks we all were expecting to see. So I want to go ahead and do a recap of YCS Vegas, discuss a few things that I think that we definitely need to discuss. So starting off with YCS Vegas, it was, of course, what we all expected going into a Tier 0 format. It looked like Snake Eyes had an 85 percentile show up for the tournament. And I'm talking about Snake Eyes Pure and Snake Eye Fire King. But we also had a few players who actually made it into the finals with Snake Eyes Rescue Ace. So that was actually pretty interesting to see, and I'm actually kind of happy that Snake Eyes Rescue Ace got as far as it did. So that alone shows right there how good the Snake Eyes engine is, working in conjunction with a deck that got hit really hard on the ban list, but still was able to be so viable that it actually was able to make it to the finals. So if you guys are looking to be slightly different and a little bit more spicier than what we're used to seeing right now, definitely look into some Snake Eye Rescue Ace, because you never know, that might end up being the deck for you. It might not be the best, but as long as it's the most funnest deck for you, that's all that really matters. So going into YCS, like I said, 85 percentile show up for Snake Eyes is pretty crazy. And a lot of players actually had a lot of things going on with their Snake Eyes, and their decks were actually run a few different variants that the traditional decks are normally played. And I definitely want to go over and touch a few different topics on that, because we can definitely learn a few things from the way these decks are run, and a few cards that was actually dropped that was traditionally thought as staples for these decks. So I want to go ahead and figure out why they potentially did not run them. So now we're looking at YCS Las Vegas winner bracket here, and it looks like, of course, Fire Kings, we're at top 2, top 4, top 8, and top 16. And of course you see Fire King took majority of the plays here at 23, with Snake Eyes at 17. And I know there's been a lot of controversy in the current format right now where a lot of players are saying Snake Eyes Pure is better than Snake Eyes Fire King. In my last tier list video, I actually ranked Fire King above Snake Eyes Pure, and you guys in the comments definitely let me know your opinions, and I absolutely appreciated that, and I love the support and the commentary that we have going back and forth with each other. So by all means, every time you guys have your own opinions, please leave it in the comments below, because I love talking to you guys, explain a little bit of my thought process, and see where you guys are coming from as well, and we can go ahead and have a great old time in the comments below. Of course, Fire King did take majority of the leaderboard here for the last finals, and I personally run Fire King Snake Eyes myself, and I still will stick to my guns and say Fire King Snake Eyes is the slightly better option than pure Snake Eyes. And if you guys were actually watching YCS Vegas, when Pax was playing one of his opponents, he actually went ahead and hand trapped Ash opening up on his opponent's hand, and that basically made his opponent pass turn. And that was a really hard hit, because he basically drew into all bricks besides that one Ash. And that was a perfect example of why I personally think Fire King has a slight upper advantage over a pure Snake Eyes, because the chances of you bricking more often in Fire King is drastically lower. If you get hand trapped on your Ash, you still have Bonfire. If something goes wrong with your Bonfire or a Droll gets hit, you still have your Fire King cards to go ahead and open up a play with potentially. So you have 3 different variants of how you can climb that ladder, versus with Snake Eyes, it is somewhat significantly less. And if you get hit on your Snake Eyes with a brick hand, you're punished a lot more and you can't really recover. So that's exactly why I personally think that Fire King Snake Eyes is slightly better than the pure Snake Eye. It's nothing drastic that could potentially change a format or the way you run the deck, but in key moments like this, in the finals of YCS Vegas, it proves my point that Fire King is potentially the better option, because if he had another card he can actually had opened up hand with, even though Ash got hit with a hand trap, opponent could still had made a full board depending on what other cards he had in his hand with a Fire King card. So that's the reasoning I'm going to stick with, guys. So besides Fire King and Snake Eyes that got the most representative, not so surprisingly, Voiceless Voice was the second most represented here. It looks like at 5. And I absolutely said that is really good. I last put the deck into king of locals, and I think that's great exactly where it is now. But like I mentioned before, that deck is going to be climbing the ladders very, very quickly. With the amount of plays we're seeing and the amount of spiciness everyone's cooking up right now with that deck, and new support and cards that'll be coming out in the future that's going to be able to splash into this deck, that will take this deck to a top tier meta deck very, very quickly. The deck is absolutely good right now. It's nothing that's going to be breaking the board at the moment, but I know for a fact this deck will get up there to where it needs to be. I'm happy that it's getting the play it deserves because this deck is really dope, and we haven't had a competitive ritual deck in ages. I know Fusion, Synchros, XYZs, and Links just dominated the meta. I'm happy to even see Synchros coming back recently with Red Dragon Archfiend. Don't sleep on that deck because a lot of people think it's not good, but it absolutely is, I'm telling you. But Rituals never got the support it needed, and I'm so happy they are finally coming back in a competitive format now. And of course, the remaining decks were just Rescue Ace, and we had Pearly at 1, and we actually had Floor and the Rees at 1. And I know in my last video I had some commenters saying Floor and the Rees weren't that good, or a lot of people disagree and believe that Floor and the Rees should be a lot lower. But I strongly advise you guys to take a look at Floor and the Rees once again, because it looks like a plain generic deck that can't do much, but the reason why it's so competitive in the format, it was actually able to make finals, is because it does certain things that other decks can't do. And it kind of works from other decks. It's stun locks, it's control deck, it works off the banish, which not much decks can really hit the banish zone like that. It can control the graveyard, and it can shift it very easily. So this deck has a lot going for it, especially going first. It can force your opponent to play a completely different route or not even play at all if they open up a very good hand. And that's why I said Floor and the Rees is a really good deck. It's not the best, but it is a still very good deck, and especially for the budget, it's worth picking up right now. If you kind of want to face the top tier decks and still be somewhat competitive, or even have some fun watching them struggle how to get around your board. So we're not all surprised with the lineup that really made it here. Purely is the only deck I am surprised about that actually made this far, because I feel like they got hit pretty bad. They don't really have much going for them. They are at this point being played somewhat as a control deck, but besides that, I was very surprised to even see a Purely even making it to the finals. But hey, all for you, man. That just goes to show that you can still do it with a Pearly deck and you can still make finals. So all the Pearly players out there, all to you. Enjoy the deck while you still can, because I feel like the deck's not going to be that good much longer. Now, of course, we want to talk about a card that got major play in the YCS, and that was Lullaby being played by Pax. And with that card, it is the perfect card for this Tier 0 format. The reason why is because it allows you to copy another card in your opponent's deck and put it into your hand. And especially when you're going up against a mirror match, when you know 85% of the players are going to have the card you need, such as Ash, Populist, or any other opening cards you potentially need, you know that would be the perfect time to go ahead and play Lullaby, because you're basically just having a fourth copy of that card you need. If you're running 3, then guess what? Now you have 6 copies of whatever card you need in your deck right now. So that was a smart play, and I honestly didn't even know about that card until I watched it being played in YCS Las Vegas, and it was really, really interesting. So I would definitely recommend keeping an eye on that card, maybe grabbing a few copies whilst you still can, and definitely throwing it in a side deck. I would not recommend main decking that card, because you don't really know, depending on your locals of course and who you play up against, what deck they're really running. But if your locals are heavy Snake Eye, Fire King players, that'll be a great card to main. But I would still personally say choose that as a side card, because it is a great card to have when you really, really need it. Going into game 2, if you took that L the first turn, it can drastically change the board. And of course, we all want to talk about the controversy with Sam in the finals, Team Samurai taking an L on a duel with the controversial "oh damn" that was being said there. And I feel like it was misrepresented drastically in this context, the way he said it. Now, he didn't purposely mean to say it towards the other player. He was just saying it as a response to the situation that was happening at the time when he was misplaying, and it just kind of came out. So it wasn't something that was directly said on purpose to be disrespectful to the players, to the judges, or anybody like that. But unfortunately, Konami did take it as such, because they do stand their ground on a very strict ruling basis, and it cost him a duel. So that did cause a lot of controversy in the community when they did see that, because it could have definitely changed the whole format of the game right there. It really depends on your perspective of how you're really going to go into this controversy that a lot of people aren't really seeing, and I definitely want to break that down. Like when a player's on stage, for an example, there's a lot going on. They're wearing a jersey, they have sponsorships, they're representing the game, and they're representing Konami as a company entirely. And for you to go ahead and have like a misconduct or even saying something that's remotely disrespectful or rude, that's potentially breaking rules, is going to have a negative effect. In other esports, you can lose a match, you can get disqualified altogether. Most commonly, you will get fined. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, we can't fine players, but we could affect the game itself. I personally think that disqualifying him in that situation, as the voiceover said, was a little bit over dramatic, and I don't feel like it warranted him to take that L for that, because it wasn't something he purposely said towards another player or to anyone in general to be disrespectful. But at the same time, I can get where Konami's coming from, because they are going to be holding a strict bar of where they expect players to have that respect for the game, for the company, and for other players surrounding them on that stage. So it's like a double-edged sword really going into the situation. I feel for Sam and what happened to him, but at the same time, you also have to respect Konami because it is their game and their rules, and they try to uphold it with as much respect as possible. But on the flip side, there were players that are having a back and forth banter with each other that definitely was breaking the rules for Konami and should have been potentially disqualified or disciplined in some manner whatsoever, but yet they weren't, which was very interesting because I can't really justify Konami going after Sam for this situation, but them letting other players slide with the comments that they made on purpose to another player they were going up against. So it doesn't really make sense that you're punishing one player and not the rest. At the same time, it's like, I get you want to do what's right for the company because you have an image to obtain, but at what cost are you really going to be doing that? If anything, Sam shouldn't really have gotten hit for that, but the other players that was doing the bashing should have. I think that would have been the more fair option, but you guys could let me know, leave your comments in below, and I'll definitely love to have those conversations with you guys and see maybe where you guys think. Was Konami in the right? Was Sam in the right? So YCS Vegas is a wrap. Snake Eyes, Fire King, dominated it, and I'm actually happy and not happy to see that. And of course, I love seeing my deck being represented in a top play competition such as YCS in finals, and I love seeing what the players did with the deck so I can personally watch the videos and learn myself if there's anything that's teachable in those videos. But at the same time, with an 85 percentile show up rate on my deck, that's also not the funnest thing to do, because then you know the whole day you'll be going up against the same deck over and over. And I personally am one for diversity, and I love when the game has so many decks going for them. You never know what you're going up against, and it makes the game a lot harder and a lot more fun, because then you really have to pay attention a lot to your side deck and what you'll be playing, because you never know what deck will come at you and potentially just wipe you off the leaderboard. That's all I got for you guys today for the YCS Las Vegas finals. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Stay tuned for the next video, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.